Dan, how are you?
I'm really good, thanks. Really good. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's been a good day, hasn't it, so far? But wow, what a fight between Anthony Joshua and Francis Ngannou. What do you make of it?
I think it's going to be fantastic. I think a lot of people are excited about this because now they realise that Ngannou can box, and I feel like the boxing world is now interested in this fight to kind of see if Anthony Joshua can solve the Ngannou problem. There seems to be a lot more interest in this one, surprisingly, than there was the Fury one.
Do you think Ngannou kind of shocked the boxing world when he dropped Fury? Because I certainly didn't expect it, and I think a lot of people wrote Ngannou off before the fight. I thought it was a bit of a joke fight. But what did you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised. Of course, I gave Francis a fantastic chance of coming out on top, but he showed me a lot of things in that fight I didn't expect. You know, his ability to maintain his composure and not panic or get too excited or anything like that. Very difficult things to do in a circumstance, a situation that's as grand as that. So that was a big surprise for me. And then his ability just to box, his boxing ability. I think that was a surprise to Fury, and I think the boxing community generally kind of looked around and went, wow, okay, maybe we'll see this guy keep improving and cause problems. I think there were a lot of things he did to surprise people, and a big knockout punch was not one of them.
I mean, when he dropped Fury, was part of you thinking, go on and capitalise that now? Because I think a lot of people thought as soon as he gets up, just go for it. But at the same time, you don't want to get too ahead of yourself.
Yeah, no, and this was really where he showed his ability to control himself, his discipline. Because, like, my concern is that for the first few rounds, he was going to overthrow and he was going to make himself tired. And I think that was a real risk. You put your man down on the floor. Excitement peaks, your adrenaline kicks in, then you go rushing in trying to get the finish, and he didn't, right? He held his composure. He did exactly what a high-level professional boxer would do. That, again, is another area where he stepped outside of himself and proved people wrong. And I think it was the right thing to do to not chase Fury down, because, of course, he could have paid for it, but at the same time, I think now he's got that confidence that he can do 10 rounds. This will be a different fight.
How did you score that fight, just out of interest? Did you have Fury win or did you have Ngannou win?
No, I had Ngannou winning. I haven't got my exact scorecard, but I had him 2 points up on the scorecards. I felt like he did enough to win the fight, honestly. And I feel like if it wasn't, Tyson Fury, who everyone expected to fight, and then Ngannou, who everyone was writing off, as you said, I feel like the judges would have scored it more fairly. But yeah.
Obviously, a lot of people saying he wasn't prepared for that fight, and he didn't train his best. Obviously, he's training his best for Usyk now. If Ngannou is to beat AJ and the Fury rematch could happen, do you think we could see a different Tyson Fury against Ngannou?
Yeah, absolutely, I do. I think he's going to be far more prepared with what Ngannou can bring to the table now. I think, if I look at the fight from Fury's perspective, I think, well, I'm expecting him to throw big, I'm expecting him to miss, and I'm going to tie him up, I'm going to wear him out, and I'm going to make him tired. And because he wasn't able to do that, he didn't have other parts of his game that he'd already kind of bolstered ready for this fight. Like, he couldn't get on his toes and work behind his jab because he wasn't in full condition like he would be if he was fighting Usyk. And I think if he got a second fight against Ngannou, it would be a far more difficult test. But then again, Ngannou knows he can land on him now. There aren't the same kind of questions in his mind. I would love to see the rematch, though, for sure.
Do you think people like Ngannou really deserve these opportunities? He's left MMA, he's put everything on the line here. He said he wants Fury and Joshua, he's had them in his first 2 fights. Do you think this is the kind of overlap that we need to see? Different people coming in and showing what they can do?
I think if it's the right person, yeah. I mean, obviously we had the McGregor Mayweather fight a few years ago, and that was the right thing at the right time because McGregor was that big star. I don't think you could just take anybody from the MMA world and move them over. I think it has to be a very special individual, and I don't think there are many people that can command that same kind of interest that Ngannou did. I mean, obviously, retiring as the UFC heavyweight champion, going into free agency, that was a big facet, and I think maybe only John Jones will be able to do. Like, if you put Stipe Miocic on that stage, people aren't nearly as excited. I don't even think they'd be as excited if it was John Jones. So for me, Ngannou is a very special individual, and I do think there are other fighters in MMA that can make that transition, but nobody the same impact that Ngannou's had.
Even if Ngannou is to lose this, who would you like to see him fight next? Maybe Usyk or Hrgovic or somebody like that, Zhang. There's so many different people that he could fight, but who would you like to see?
Good questions. I feel like there were lots of heavyweights on that previous card that Ngannou fought on, the likes of Bakoli, Chisora. Interesting fights that they're not necessarily the highest level of boxers either, at this stage in their career or not yet in their career. But Ngannou, you could throw him in that mix. And Eddie Hearn said something very interesting. He said, he said Ngannou can win and lose at any level of the heavyweight division, and I think that's true. I think you could put him in there against Usyk and he could catch him clean and knock him out. But I also think he could struggle with an amateur that's fighting on an undercard in York Hall potentially, you know. Because he's an unknown commodity, we kind of don't know where he tops out.
He's doing it a bit back to front. He's got the two top, and then he's kind of working his way down the pile. You know, he could have the likes of like Joel Miller or Daniel Dubois, people like that, you know, I think would still be a brilliant fight, but perhaps we won't know what to expect. We might see a little bit more after these two fights of what his style is like, but we still don't know the boxer side of Francis Ngannou yet.
No, exactly. And because he had such a good performance against Fury, that's what's opened this opportunity for him to step in against AJ. If he loses this and he goes 0-2, then we might bring him back down in the rankings and have him fight somebody lower on the card. But I don't know. He has this aura around him, doesn't he? Like if he struggles in this fight, he comes back to mixed martial arts. He has a couple more fights. He potentially goes back into boxing, or maybe he can bring a boxer over to MMA. Like, I think there are lots of different options on the table for him right now. I think as long as he's having success in boxing, he's going to stay in the boxing world. But the MMA world's there waiting for him as well. He's got other opportunities there for sure.
Finally, how do you see the fight going then between AJ and Ngannou?
I am very, very confident in Ngannou in this one. I thought that he was going to start well against Fury, and then Fury was going to turn it around. This time around, I feel like Ngannou is going to start well. AJ is going to find his confidence, maybe warm up into the fight a little bit, but then Ngannou is going to put it on him in the last couple of rounds, especially because he knows that decision got away from him against Fury.
Won't want it to happen again.
Exactly that. He's going to want to really try and put a full stop on this, and I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't knock him out, he takes the points because he's done enough damage over the rounds.
Even though he seemed to a lot of people to be beating Fury, do you think he's got to have a distinct performance against AJ so that there's no question that he's kind of won the fight, you know, not a close call, because, you know, there's always that worry that it might not go in their favour. So do you think it's got to be a distinct win? He's got to be a few rounds up at this point?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. And I think that, you know, I think he's going to open up a bit more in this one, because in that last fight he was concerned about his 10 rounds of conditioning, and now he's not got that question in his mind. And I also feel like he's going to feel like once he's got the upper hand on AJ, that he's going to be able to keep pushing him and bullying him. Whereas Tyson's very good at kind of rallying him and getting himself back into the fight. I feel like if Ngannou can start to push AJ back and bully him, that might start to cascade into a really dominant performance.
Finally, do you think this gives more exposure to the MMA world, having people like Conor McGregor, Francis Ngannou come over and start, you know, a new career in boxing? It makes them look back at their MMA life and career. Do you think that helps the sport in a way?
Yeah, I think it does. What I think it does more than anything is I think it helps boxers and promoters respect what the MMA experience can give to a fighter. Like AJ was just talking a minute ago when we were talking to him about the fact that he's going through Ngannou's MMA career and looking for the fights against strikers to see what he can lose. Now, I wouldn't normally hear a boxer say that about an MMA fighter. I'm going to watch his MMA fights and see what I can learn.
Do you think Tyson Fury did that?
I don't think he did, no. I think he might have watched them casually out of entertainment, but I don't think he watched them to try and learn something. I think he'd already decided what Ngannou he was going to get, and he prepared for that version.
Is that where the mutual respect comes in, that he's not just looking past him? He knows he's got a problem in Ngannou and he needs to deal with that, but he's got to understand Ngannou like he's trying to understand Joshua as a boxer. He's really an MMA fighter at heart, is Ngannou, so that's the mutual respect that AJ's not just going to walk over him and look straight past him.
Yeah, I mean, AJ knows that now he can box and he will try and, you know, keep his boxing shape and composure. But, you know, at the same time, he's got that physicality, that power and that strength as well, which might be something that AJ's not experienced yet. I mean, I know, of course, AJ's slight height and reach advantage, but the solidity of Ngannou.
Be a weight disadvantage as well, will Joshua?
You've got to think so. And I think he's going to feel though Ngannou's punches through his guard. I think it's going to be a real shock to the system for him.
Well, thank you so much for your time.